Hey guys! So, some of you may know that I'm a DC fan. I know, I've been real subtle about it in my videos. I saw Black Adam last night, and I really liked it. I enjoyed the experience. I thought it was a fun, thrilling ride. I thought it had, great energy throughout, and I want to talk about it today. And I was sort of waffling on like how best to talk about it, because it's not recent enough to be an autopsy, but I also don't want to do it as like a video essay because I feel like those need a bit of time and perspective away from the piece of art. But I mean, I enjoyed it so much that I kind of want to talk about it now. So I came up with this idea to talk about Black Adam using this thing that we're taught in theater school called the Liz Lerman critical response process, which is a multi-step guide for giving and receiving feedback as artists. You see my my souvenir Star Labs hoodie is from the show, not the movies. For those of you who don't know, which I assume is probably most of you, Liz Lerman is a really well-known choreographer in the worlds of dance and theater and all the sort of intersections there. And she's also a teacher, and she's been working for a very long time. And over her career, over the course of her career, she noticed that when presenting unfinished works or works in progress, that artists have a tendency to apologize for their work rather than explain or explore or receive feedback in a productive way. So she developed this technique that, like I said, is multi-step. That's been in use since the 90s, and she's had 2 books published on the critical response process. So I want to use talking about Black Adam as also an excuse to sort of explore this on a larger scale, especially because on YouTube, a lot of criticism tends to be very like, oh, let me dunk on this thing. You know what I mean? Let me mine it for some content and make fun of it for like, for views and such. Which has been lucrative. I have a lot of thoughts about Black Adam, so I'm going to be structuring them through this critical response process in order to talk about the things that I liked, things that I'm curious about, and things that I think could be improved upon while working on the next phase of the DC universe. Because the DCEU, I love the DCEU so much and so uncomplicatedly. Like, I don't mean this with anything less than 100% sincerity when I say that the DCEU is my favorite shared universe. In part because the films like vary so much between each other in terms of like tone and style and whatnot. I love Zack Snyder's films. I loved Patty Jenkins' movies. James Wan, Aquaman was great. David Sandberg, loved Shazam. Really excited for Shazam 2. Loved Birds of Prey. Loved the Suicide Squad. The only ones I really didn't like were the ones where you could feel the studio meddling in them. Obviously, the trailer park cut of Suicide Squad, hashtag release the air cut, and also, of course, Justice League. Like, the Snyder cut was just a million times better in every way, and I've seen it like a million times. Whereas with Justice League, I hope to never, ever, ever see it again. But like, I'm also such a DC apologist. Like, I even love like Wonder Woman 1984, and I know that one's like the bad one of the ones that were director driven, allegedly. And maybe I'll do a video on that someday because like I see people dunking on it for like a lot of valid reasons and also some invalid reasons, I think. I watch it and I enjoy it and I just think to myself, oh my god, this is my trash. This is my trash. And that's how I feel in part with Black Adam as well. In the critical response process, there are 3 roles. Role 1 is the artist slash art maker. In this case, I'm going to use Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, as the artist that I'm speaking to when giving my feedback because he's been really spearheading this project for a number of years. and is working as an executive producer in the DC universe going forward, which I'm very excited about. Role 2 is responder. That's me. I'm the responder. I have just taken in this work. I have feedback for the artist, and I will be delivering that. So the goal of this is dialogue. I will be engaging in a dialogue with you, The Rock. And role 3 is a facilitator. Someone who initiates each step, keeps the process on track, and works to help the artist and responders use the process to frame useful questions and responses. That's also going to be me. I'm just going to do that. The critical response process is broken up, like I said, into 4 steps. Step 1 is statements of meaning, where the responders state what was meaningful, evocative, interesting, exciting, and or striking in the work they have just witnessed. If you couldn't tell, I'm reading this off of her website, just like full stop. Step 2 is the artist as questioner. I'm going to be hypothesizing some questions that Dwayne Johnson was asking with this movie, and with his broader plan for the DCEU going forward. I think the one that's on everyone's minds was, did the film sufficiently change the hierarchy of power in the DC universe? And I don't know, I might want to skip that step and circle back to it at the end, because I do have an answer that I'll be diving into at the end here. Is that a fucking cop? Step 3 is for neutral questions. I think it's easy for artists who don't have a lot of experience with the CRP, that's, what they call the critical response process, to sort of, I guess, misunderstand this and say, like, maybe I'll ask a leading question that has an opinion buried in it. No, that's not what this is. This is, I think a good other term for this is clarifying questions. Something that had you curious, that you left the theater, in this case, still wondering about. You know what I mean? Step 4 is opinion time, where you give your honest thoughts and your feedback in a way that is constructive, and a way that is like, proper, like, opinions that are only filtered through the guise of like what's helpful to the artist going forward. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna try and stick to that, keep things productive. I don't want to like do any ad hominem attacks. Unless they're against Walter Hamada. Normally, in the opinion time part of this all, the artist who is usually present has the ability to say, I kind of don't want opinions right now. I'm not in the space to receive them. And that's totally okay. But given that this movie had like a $200 million budget and had a wide release and a lot of advertising, I'm just going to assume that The Rock is okay with this. So let's dive into step 1, statements of meaning. What was meaningful to me watching this film? I have notes written down in my notebook, because of fucking course I do. So, statements of meaning. Number 1, I really liked the themes present in the movie of occupation and imperialism. Both sort of, I guess, culturally and also like, physically, like proper imperialism. And the oppression of the people of Kandak, both at the hands of foreign invaders, such as the Intergang or the Justice Society, as well as, the ways that fascism can grow within systems to oppress people within their own governments. This is why I normally write a script for these. It starts off in like 2600 BC. Kandak is like the very first. Am I pronouncing that right? I apologize for not pronouncing that right. Kandak is like, it's like Marine. It's like Slaver's Bay in Game of Thrones. It's like proper enslaved. Everyone is suffering all the time at the hands of the king, who is having them like dig up a very rare material called Imperium. Imperium? What's it called? Okay, I don't remember what it was called. I'm just gonna say Imperium. To create the crown of Sabak, which essentially gives him like, it's, whatever. But I really liked that. I really liked the depiction of Kandak as a culture and a people and a society that is oppressed, and it had a lot of, I guess, real world similarities to some current examples of that, which, I don't know that I can say without getting demonetized. I do wonder what's going to happen when this releases in Israel and people are going to like go to the theater and is like, wait, are we the baddies? I also like that this conflict, this sort of meta societal conflict, played into the characters themselves. You know, Black Adam as a Kandaki superhero, who the people really look up to. And see as a sense of as a symbol of empowerment in fighting against oppressive regimes versus the Justice Society of America, which is obviously American imperialism, as a peacekeeping force, which basically just goes in and on foreign soil and just destroys shit in order to keep everyone quiet and complacent, as well as the foreign intergang, which poses a continuous threat against both Black Adam and also the people that he cares about, Adriana and Amon. I think it's good to have human level villains to I guess endanger the human level characters in these sort of narratives, because it adds more grounded stakes for such a fucking powerful ass powerhouse superhero like Black Adam. So I found that meaningful. I also thought that Sabak, as sort of like a blood right ruler who wants to enslave everyone, as a very powerful I guess idea of the fact that even absent foreign invaders, fascism can still arise by opportunistic bad actors. And part of the duty of people in caring for their society is making sure that those people aren't allowed to accrue power as well. I thought the action was absolutely fantastic. Like, genuinely some of the best action, certainly of this year. I'd probably go so far as to say it's the best action of this year, given all of the other superhero offerings. And I'm saying specifically to superheroes. I didn't see like Bullet Train or whatever. So I don't know if that's better. I thought the fight choreography was fantastic. I thought, The Rock really killed it. I thought he had a great presence. And the action scenes themselves were very evocative of Man of Steel and like the Kryptonians. And I thought that was super cool as someone who loves Man of Steel and loves Zack Snyder. I could really feel that influence in this movie. I also thought it just had a lot of weight behind it, which is something that I was sort of lacking, I think, a bit in things like the Batman and things like especially Thor and Doctor Strange. Like I think that given like what you go to see a Dwayne Johnson superhero film for, I think this film really delivered on the action set pieces, which are a lot of the film. Like a proper bulk of the film is action set pieces. We'll get to that. I also think the score really complemented that. I thought the score was really great. I was actually just listening to it on the train because like it is like seriously proper intense, and it really complements the action scenes really well. I thought the composer, Lorne, oh god, what's his name? Yeah, Lorne Balfe. I think that's how you pronounce it. Lorne Balfe or Lorne Balfe. He did a fantastic job, a absolutely fantastic job. It's one of those scores and one of those movies really that just like builds and builds and really starts really high in terms of action and set pieces and just keeps on going. It's like all peaks, no valleys, just all peaks all the time. It actually reminds me a lot of the Fast and the Furious movies. I sort of like this movie in the same way that I like those, where it's just like pure, action cheese, machismo, whatever. I also thought the characterizations of all of the characters was really strong. I thought Black Adam was absolutely fantastically characterized by this film. You really know what he's all about. You really know his story, and you really get invested in him as a character. And I thought Dwayne Johnson's performance, I know it's received a bit of flack because he always makes the face or whatever, like he always makes the same face for whatever emotion, but that also extends to the side characters like Adriana, like Amon, like Kareem and Ishmael. I thought they had fantastic characterizations. I thought the Justice Society was grade A. The Justice Society was really, really great, you guys. Even in like the amount of screen time that they had, which was substantial proportionally to the runtime of the film. It was split between 4 characters, so like even if you felt like maybe there was some depth missing or they had some opportunities to go deeper and explore them as people more, you still knew what they were about. All of the costumes were fantastic. The performances were amazing. Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate fucking stole the show. Everyone is saying that, and it is so true. Aldous Hodge was fantastic as Hawkman. It felt like Hawkman right out of the fucking comic books. I'd been waiting to see Carter Hall, you know, on screen for the longest time on like a big movie screen because I fucking love the Thanagarians, and like he really delivered, I would say, as Hawkman. And the same goes for, you know, Cyclone and Atom Smasher. I wasn't super familiar with Cyclone or Atom Smasher from the comics. I knew of them and I'd read some books where they showed up, but I didn't really know what they were super about. But Quintessa fucking killed it as Cyclone. I was so excited for them, and like I thought they did an absolutely fantastic job. And no, this is the first time I have ever enjoyed Noah Centineo in anything, really. I thought I was gonna dislike him. I thought he was gonna be the weak link, but he was like so perfect. Like, and they complemented each other so well. They were both like these sort of like nerdy teens who were a little awkward around each other. And you know, he wasn't super used to his powers, whereas Maxine was more like socially awkward. Like you could tell she was really into like, you know, technology, and she was that sort of archetype of like someone who's like, you know, has some problems socially, like I guess engaging with people. By the way, baseline here, Quintessa Swindell, our Cyclone, uses they, he pronouns, and I will be referring to them as such when I'm referring to Quintessa. When I'm referring to Maxine / Cyclone, specifically, I'll be using she, her, because the character uses she, her. I just wanted to lay that groundwork going forward. When I say the action is like what you go to this movie for, I really mean it. A lot of Cyclone's movements in the film were very graceful. They were very dancerly. I think Quintessa was inspired by dance when they were preparing for the role, and I think they were directed as such. Even in their personalities, you know, like they like sold it right out the gate. You know, Cyclone comes up on her bike and she's listening to music, and she's got this sort of like, you know, like very like green ingenue energy to her. Atom Smasher comes in like in the back of like an Uber or whatever, and he's like FaceTiming with his uncle, who is like the original Atom Smasher. His uncle was Al Pratt, the original Atom from the comics. You probably know Atom as Ray Palmer and Ryan Choi. Ryan Choi was in the Snyder Cut. He was played by Zhang Kai, and he was supposed to get his own solo movie, but you know, Warner Bros. Did it. You know, so. And then fucking Noah Centineo shows up as the Atom Smasher, and he's so awkward, and he's like, and he's got this like dorky energy about him, and his voice is perfect, and his physicality is perfect. There's a scene where he literally swats Hawkman out of the sky. So, it was so funny and so well done. Oh god, I love them. I need a Justice Society movie now. I need a Justice Society movie with everyone returning, except for Pierce Brosnan, because, you know, spoilers. I need Hawkman, I need Cyclone, I need Atom Smasher, I need new members, I need Black Adam to show up, I need like the full fucking Justice Society movie, because they were like, even the scene in which they were introduced and the Justice Society theme is playing, and it's fantastic, and then their jet rises out of the garden at Hawkman's Louisiana estate, and it's proper X-Men. It is so fantastic. I also loved the casting emphasis on people of color, you know. I thought it was great that we had this many non-white characters in a superhero film, leading a superhero film. I love that you can have a big budget superhero movie about Black Adam and have most of the cast be made up of black people, Arab people, in The Rock's case, Samoan people, you know, like really just like a huge amount of diversity in this casting. With these characters, and it felt very authentic. So in that regard, I also really hope that this movie is a financial success, which is why I'm saying go see it, go financially support this movie, because we need more POC-centric, big-budget Hollywood films. You know, and we've seen that they can be successes with Black Panther, with Nope, but I think if we keep up the momentum, it's going to send a real message that, you know, these films do well, they are successful, and it will incentivize these studios that control all of this to invest in more of these projects. And that's really exciting. That's really exciting. And for the record, I know that I've, I guess, aligned myself with, you know, the broader DC fandom, and it has a vocal contingent of fans that are less than reputable. Let's say they're less than reputable, and I want to say fuck those fans. I don't associate with them. They're not. I wouldn't even consider them fans, because how are you going to be a fan of movies that champion, you know, diversity and inclusion and hope and inspiration for the future, and be a horrible racist bigot? Like, if that's you, you are clearly missing the point of these movies. And I feel very sorry for you, and I feel no community with you, and you can fuck off. because the work that, you know, The Rock is doing here, the work that everyone who worked on this film is doing here is damn important, and I see it as a growing trend in Hollywood, and I don't want it to stop ever. Something that really worked for me and really helped sell me on Black Adam as a character is, you know, his role as a father. He's a grieving father who is angry, rightfully, about the execution, or I guess the assassination of his son, you know? And I like the way that they revealed it too, that like the original story that they told in the beginning was a little unreliable because it was the story, the narrative that had been passed down for thousands of years in Kandak. And that's a story of inspiration, but I also like that it gets more complicated because at the center of this story is a grieving father. And that's something that is so universal and so, you know, proper ubiquitous because it's something that so many people can relate to. And it really helps ground the character, I think. And it helps the audience relate to him so that we start to really care about him. And I like the way that it's the information is sort of doled out. I think it was really well done. The emphasis on found family, the emphasis on, you know, chosen family, as well as the family that you're born with, is really important, like as an emotional through line throughout this film. And it's something that really resonated with me watching. So I want to give major props to the team on that because it really helped sell the character for me. Because that's what Black Adam is at his core. He's a grieving father. And that is something that really comes through in most of his best comic books. I also really loved, and this was something that I was worried about, but I really loved that when the film wrapped up and Black Adam came to his truce with the Justice Society, that the film didn't shy away from his philosophy of violence as direct action against those who are oppressing you. And I really loved that Adriana came in and said his philosophy is what allows him to do the dirty work that you won't sully your hands with. You know what I mean? The Justice Society is not the good guys here. And it's a very, I guess, morally gray film because it's a very, very complicated topic. And I'm glad that it doesn't pull its punches with that. Because no one comes out in the moral good or the moral bad necessarily. What it comes out is as a group of very morally complicated people who are willing to do different things for different reasons, with the eventual goal of, you know, I guess, saving the day. But in the Justice Society's version of saving the day, it's very that traditional, you know, we don't kill. You know, there are moral codes that we have to abide by in doing our work. And then you have Adriana and you have Tethadam saying that moral code is keeping us in chains. That moral code is the thing that is allowing our oppressors to continue on oppressing us. And then here you have Black Adam. Sorry, I'm getting I'm getting really, I guess, emotionally invested in this because it's something I feel very passionate about. But then here you have Black Adam saying, these people met us with violence. They've met us with violence for years, decades, centuries, and it's been one oppressor after another. We will do whatever it takes to liberate our people. It also has really good CGI. Sorry, I know that was a whole tangent, but that's something that really resonated with the film for me. But this movie's CGI is insane, dude. It's fucking insane. Isn't it great what happens when your movie isn't relying wholly on VFX for everything, while also creating horrible working conditions for the VFX supervisors that literally build your film from the ground up? There's a scene within the first like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, where it's Black Adam versus the Intergang, and it's like slow motion. He's just going through it, and God, there's explosions, there's grenades, there's so many bullets. It's all in the desert. The color is beautiful. The color grading in this movie is fantastic, and he's going through, and it is just like, oh my God, you have to see it. There's lightning everywhere. It's like, oh my God. So I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out because I'm so happy that a film like this, a superhero film like this, that is posing a real competition to Marvel, looks this great, looks this fucking crazy, badass, insane. You know what I mean? It looks insane, dude. That's what really sells the action scenes. That's why Cyclone looks amazing as she twirls through the air. That's why You know, Atom Smasher looks great as the lights on his costume light up as he grows to be 6 stories high. And why Hawkman looks amazing as his wings sprout from his back. And Dr. Fate, everything with Dr. Fate. Everything with Dr. Fate looks crazy, dude. It looks insane. What I love about Dr. Fate too is that all of his like visual effects and his magic and all that are all unified by like a sort of like a common like I guess visual motif, which is, you know, the gold and the sharp edges and all that, and it looks really, really cool. It looks like glass almost, but it has like a holographic effect to it too. And that's something that I feel like I missed a bit in Doctor Strange, which is that like, the thing about Doctor Strange is that, yeah, you do have like the unified like motifs that exist there, but a lot of the spells that he casts look very different. I think that was especially prominent in Infinity War, where he was having his battle with Thanos, and like all of his spells looked very different, whereas with Dr. Fate, they all have the same sort of unifying visual motif that really helps sells his characterization. I would go so far as to say this is probably the best CGI of any superhero project all year, easily. I thought the Batman looked good. I thought the Batman looked really good. But, well, I guess it's been talked about how bad Doctor Strange looked, and especially how bad Love and Thunder looked. Love and Thunder... Oof, there aren't even words for how bad that movie looked. And this film so refreshingly blows them all out of the water. Blows them all out of the water, and it was so good to see because I fucking love good CGI, really like good, proper, action-y, comic booky set pieces. That's something I really respond to. Like, I don't even need a great screenplay, a great narrative, so long as I get to see characters and heroes and monsters and whatever that I love fighting each other in a really cool action set piece. I can go Gorilla Brain with it. I really can. I'm totally cool to do that. I can go, ooh, that's shiny. Ooh, that looked really cool. You know, like I'm totally down to do that for 2 hours. I've seen the fucking, you know, Godzilla 2 a million times. And Godzilla 2 is something that I'll be talking about several times in this video. So stay tuned. I also really loved this short little bit where Black Adam is being held in stasis at a remote Task Force X facility, and you get to see Amelia Harcourt from the Suicide Squad and from Peacemaker, and she's there, and it sort of pans back. This is after he said Shazam and lost the powers and all that, whatever. And it sort of pans back, and it sort of like it shows all of like these other fucking like stasis superheroes or like super characters. I'm like, ooh, some of them are big, some of them are little, some of them are like regular man size, some of them have like weird proportions, and it looks really cool. And it's like, oh, that's a really good teaser for like the future. That's a really good teaser for the future. And it keeps in line with DC's sort of, I guess, recurring theme in this universe of introducing characters as being established in the universe. You know, that's something I really love in the Suicide Squad movies, in Batman v Superman, in Birds of Prey. I really love the fact that they're just introducing these characters as being established. Not everyone needs an origin story. In fact, it's a lot more economic if you want to get a bunch of characters in your universe and have it feel like it's alive and like a comic book in a relatively short amount of time, if you just introduce them as already existing in the world. You know, because we know who these people are. I know that was a big complaint with, you know, Suicide Squad 1, was that, you know, they did like sort of the comic booky intros with all of the people and give you the rundown, and like I am keeping an open mind with like how that's gonna like look in the Ayer cut, so I don't want to I guess speak too praisingly about it, but like we know who Killer Croc is, right? So like so we didn't need to see Waylon Jones, I guess, like being born with his defect and being raised in the sewers necessarily. Like, it's okay to introduce characters just already existing. In fact, it's something that makes the world feel, like I said, a lot more alive and living. In fact, I think in the new Suicide Squad that came out last year, one of my favorite moments in the film, and I love the film, but one of my favorite moments was they were introducing Ratcatcher, played by Daniela Melchior. Bloodsport, who's leading the team, you know, Amanda Waller says to him, because he says to her, "What happened to the first Ratcatcher?" Because her name is Ratcatcher 2.
Well, he couldn't afford Ratcatcher 1?
He's dead. This is his daughter.
And I'm like, that tells you everything you need to know. And then you see a flashback later on, and you have her little, story on the bus and all that, and it's cool. And it's cool, and it works. It works, I think for right now, that will be the bulk of my statements of meaning. I think I've waffled enough about how much I love this movie, and how much I enjoyed it, and the things that really spoke to me about it. Like I said, with step 2, artist as questioner, I'm going to circle back to that question of, did the hierarchy of power sufficiently change with the release of this film? Because I do have a very solid answer to that question, that I am very excited to share with you all.
All right, y'all. So, I realized as I was editing this video that my circling back to that question didn't really fit into the structure of the video anymore. So I'm just gonna answer it now. When I say that, did the hierarchy of power, what was the hierarchy of power in the DC universe sufficiently changed by this movie? And so to answer that, I'd say, like, yeah, totally. Yeah. All right, anyways, let's get back to it.
But I'm going to skip over that for right now and go into neutral questions. Questions that, I came out of, like, especially curious about exploring in the future of the DCEU going forward. So for my first, clarifying question, which is, when in the film's chronology, I just have these written down, when in the film's chronology did Teth Adam unleash the 7 deadly sins upon Kandak, as depicted in Shazam in 2019? And this film really does the work to sell you on the fact that this is a spin-off of Shazam. It is very much in the continuity of Shazam and the rest of the DCEU. And so the little details in that do matter, right? Like when Billy is transported to the Rock of Eternity. Am I wrong about that? It's where the Wizard Shazam, not the Rock, Black Adam. No, when the Wizard Shazam gives Billy his powers, first he shows the story of back in the day when there were multiple wizards, there were 7 wizards, and they were looking for a champion. They found a man in Kandak, or a boy perhaps, but they chose poorly when they gave him the powers they had different names. They had older, more region specific names for their gods, with the acronym of Shazam in Black Adam, which is another thing I really liked, because in Shazam it's the speed of, wait, no, it's not, hold on. Shazam is the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the stamina of Atlas, the power of Zeus, the courage of Achilles, and the speed of Mercury, right? But then in Black Adam, they have a new acronym for Shazam, which is more in line with the gods that are region specific to the Arab world. And I don't have a guide. I don't know if there's a guide for them online. I'll look them up later and put them in here. And then he shows Billy the vision of Black Adam unleashing the 7 deadly sins, which were the big antagonists, along with Dr. Sivana and Shazam, and destroying Kandak. And I think we got a sense that could have happened in the interim after he killed the king, but before he was banished by the wizards, or sealed by the wizards, entombed by the wizards, perhaps, so to speak, along with the crown of Sabak. We'll get to Sabak. I just thought that would have been a cool little thing to include as a little callback to Shazam. Maybe you see the 7 deadly sins rampaging through Kandak as he's doing his thing. I don't know. It's not super necessary, but it's something I'm curious about, so maybe that'll be explored in Black Adam 2 or Shazam 2 or whenever it is that they are going to finally meet. I know it's not Shazam 2, maybe Shazam 3 or something like that. Oh, this also ties into my question, which is the Wizard Shazam, when talking to Billy at the Rock of Eternity, says that they chose the champion poorly. But Hadood, he didn't do anything wrong necessarily when he was the champion. So was his So did they choose poorly because he valued his family over? Ooh, that's interesting. So when the Wizard Shazam said that to Billy, I wonder what the implications of that line is. That maybe the Council of Wizards wasn't as morally good as was depicted in Shazam. And I think that ties into the broader theme of moral complexity that's at the heart of this film. You know, perhaps the Council of Wizards wanted the champion to be more of a peacekeeping force, upholding the status quo, which, as we know from the very beginning of Black Adam, the status quo was slavery, right? Maybe that's something that the Council of Wizards was looking to uphold for some reason. Maybe it was beneficial to them for some reason, which is interesting. But I'd like to see that explored more, especially because we know that Jimon Hansu is coming back for Shazam 2, where he's sort of mentoring Billy and the rest of the Shazamily as they sort of fight against the Daughters of Zeus. I want to know, are we going to visit Hell again in the future? Because I think there is a lot of potential to explore there. So, spoiler alert, but after Ishmael is killed by Black Adam while holding the crown of Sabak, his soul is transported to Hell, which is sort of the demonic inverse of the Rock of Eternity that we see with the Council of Wizards in both Shazam and Black Adam. And in Hell, he meets the 6 demons who spell out the acronym that Sabak is. Sabak himself is a proper inverse of Shazam. He's a proper demonic sort of, I guess, black mirror image of Shazam. The name Sabak is also an acronym. It comes from... What does it come from? It comes from the demons Satan, Aim, Belial, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, and Kratels. Kratels? Cradles. So where Shazam's name comes as an acronym of heroes and mythic figures of, you know, Greek and Roman mythology, Sabak is basically demons from the Abrahamic, you know, religions and the Arab world and the Hebrew world. Canaanites, I'm sure, were in there. So basically, when completing the transformation to become Sabak, he visits Hell for like a minute. He's there for like a solid minute in Hell with Satan and Beelzebub and Amadeus. And they're in there and they're like, you are now Sabak, and he's the big bad, and Black Adam has to kill him. Because Black Adam also gets his powers from, you know, Shazam, the Wizard Shazam, and the powers of Shazam, right? So I want to know, are we going to visit Hell in the future? Because I think there's a lot of opportunities to explore that and to explore the greater mythology of the DC world. And I think that's something that The Rock is very interested in. So I want to encourage you, Mr. Johnson, to do so, right? You know, you have the post-credit scene at the end of Shazam where you know, you have that great post-credit scene at the end of Shazam where Dr. Savannah is approached by Mr. Mind, and he goes, the 7 realms will soon be ours. And like, is Hell one of those realms? I hope so. I hope to see Dr. Savannah and Mr. Mind, the little caterpillar guy, talking about like conquering Hell and, you know, getting Satan on their side. That's awesome. I'm super interested in that. Is that a neutral question? Sorry, I'm trying to keep these neutral. Clarifying questions, clarity questions, right? I want to know, are we going to visit Hell again in the future? And you don't have to give me an answer right away. Just think about it. Think about it. Oh, yeah. So, spoilers, but you know this. Why is Superman working for the government? Why is Superman... How did he come to be under Amanda Waller's employ, right? Like, his whole thing in Man of Steel was, you know, I'll help you, but it has to be on my terms, right? Like, you're not going to find where I'm hanging up my cape. I'll work with you insofar as it aligns with my own moral code, insofar as it, you know, that sort of thing. He's kind of a rogue agent. So I'm wondering how he came to be employed by Amanda Waller. And I'm very curious to see that because I think it's interesting. And I want to know. I'm not one of those Superman fans that is like, he has to be this way, he has to be this way. That's one of the reasons why I love Man of Steel, is because it put him in a position that you have never seen him in before. You know, we've never seen Superman in the position where he has to solve the trolley problem. You know, we've never seen him in this position where he's lost, searching for his identity. That's why I love him so much. That's why I relate to him so much. That's why that's why he's my Superman. You know, I fucking cried when I saw him in the post-credit scene. I literally cried in the theater a bit, because Henry Cavill is my Superman. That's the Superman that, like, oh no, sorry, I'm not gonna get into it. But like, oh, that was special. That was really special. But why is he working for Amanda Waller? I really want to know. I really want to know how he came to be under her employ. Maybe it's like a quid pro quo thing for the whole Bloodsport ICU thing, you know. Whatever it is, I will be seated. I will be seated for the next one to find out, right? And my last neutral question is, how long has the Justice Society been operating? You know, are their missions a sort of like heroic inverse of the Suicide Squad? Did they come out at around the same time as the Suicide Squad? Did they, or were they around before that? And that's how Amanda Waller made her bread and butter, by assembling this team of metahumans who go and do foreign engagements on behalf of the U.S. military, right? Because they are proper U.S. agents in this film. The Justice Society is. And while they sort of act outside of the conventional government structures, they are very much under Waller's employ. She is heading Task Force X. She has a lot of metahumans at her disposal. And I want to know how long they've been operating. And I think we got a good sense of Hawkman and Dr. Fate's relation to each other. But I want to see more of Hawkman's relationship to the rest of the government, to Waller, and to his position as a, you know, foreign operative, right? Yeah, honestly, I feel like just a greedy bottom with these questions. I'm just like, more, right? Go deeper. Okay, so now that I've gotten a lot of my praise and everything I love about the film out, and I've also asked all of my neutral questions, I do, in opinion time, want to offer some constructive feedback that I think could be useful for the film going forward, right? And for the shared universe and the franchise going forward. Now, I feel like I've been asking this about most of the superhero films that have come out in recent years, but like, where was the screenplay? I know I said I don't need a big screenplay in these super high-octane blockbuster action flicks, but I would like one. I would like a film that spends a lot of time exploring the emotional reality of their characters and their relationships with one another, so that I can better care about them, you know, when they get put in danger. That was my big thing with Adriana and Amon, which was that I know this is Isis. I know this is Osiris. I know who these people are, and I know that I love them from the comics. You know, I've read 52 like a billion times. And yet, with this film, I don't think the screenplay did enough work to really sell us on these characters, you know, or really get us invested in them, particularly Adriana, before she gets put in danger, right? Before, you know, she and her team unearth the, you know, crown of Sabak and free Black Adam from his tomb. You know, I think that had there been a little bit more time with Adriana, with her and her son, Aman, with her and her brother, Kareem, with them in their lives, maybe even their day-to-day lives, before they, you know, go spelunking for the crown of Sabak, that would have primed us a bit on them as people. Because the entire opening, especially once you realize that it was kind of only kind of a half-truth, was really all about Harut, and was really all about Black Adam, and was really priming us for, you know, them. And listen, I get it. I get that the film's not called Adriana. I get that it's called Black Adam. I get that it's not called Aman. And I get that it's not called Isis or Osiris, right? And Adriana is so important to the story, and Aman especially is so important to Black Adam and the way that he operates within this modern world, because he really does take on a fathering role to Amon, right? And I know that they were trying to do this sort of Terminator 2 style thing with Amon and Black Adam, where Amon is sort of like the John Connor, and he's teaching Black Adam about how to be sort of a modern superhero with a catchphrase, and you could see him trying with it, but I don't think the screenplay really sold us on their relationship or their characters early enough to really establish that. You know what I mean? So I think that fell a bit flat for me, personally. And it was super fun, don't get me wrong, to have him be like, tell him the man in black, oh, you're already dead. I thought that was super fun when he was like, chasing down the speeder or whatever. And I also think it could have been enriched by a bit more character exploration and a bit more dialogue from Black Adam and dialogue between him and Adriana and Amon and Kareem earlier on in the film to really sell that. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of the criticism of this film is coming from the fact that the screenplay isn't great, because it's not. And it's true. Like I said, you go to a Dwayne Johnson superhero movie, you know what you're getting yourself into, and part of that is that the screenplay is going to take a back seat, and I don't love that. As a writer, as someone who loves good quality screenplays, I don't love that. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I know the superhero genre isn't particularly known for having the most revolutionary, profound screenplays you've ever seen, right? The most amazing, scripts with a lot of depth. But there are ways to make it work. The Dark Knight is a great example. I think Blade is a good example. Man of Steel is a great example. I think Days of Future Past is great. There's a lot of really good examples of films that have been able to thread the needle, especially in the DC universe, and create a really interesting, compelling, and complex narratively and, I guess thematically as well, screenplay, while still balancing it out with a lot of really cool action set pieces. You know what I mean? Part of the reason why I love the Zack Snyder movies is because they also all have a lot of attention and care taken with their scripts, and people can shit on those movies all they want or to say that it's randy, and it's not. But part of the reason why I love Man of Steel, I'm just going to speak from the eye, part of the reason why I love Man of Steel, part of the reason why I love Batman v Superman and the Snyder Cut is because I think the screenplays are genuinely really well done, and they really work to get you invested in all of the characters in a relatively short amount of time. Well, I guess Snyder Cut is 4 hours, but but you know what I mean. Like, they're busy movies, but they also allow themselves the time to really get you invested, right? And they take the time and the care to do that. And I think that was something that was kind of missing from this, So going forward, and a lot of my notes are screenplay related, just because I feel like that's where the movie is weakest. It actually reminds me a lot of King of the Monsters, the second Godzilla film under the under Universal and the MonsterVerse, in that it sort of traded a compelling screenplay for the craziest, most awesome, coolest fucking action set pieces I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, it looks amazing and it's a great time, but the screenplay itself is kind of lacking, right? And that was a big criticism of that movie as well, is that the characters were underdeveloped and that the stakes weren't super clear and that it wasn't as compelling as it could have been because there wasn't a whole lot of time and care taken in developing it. I have some other, screenplay related notes. Like, a couple of the jokes were a little Whedon-y. That being said, that's not true of all of the jokes. I think that some of them really do work. A lot of them really do work, actually. I think this movie is really funny. There's this one exchange early on with Adriana and Kareem in the car that really sold me on their relationship early on. It was something about them being brother and sister. I can't remember the exact wording of it right now. But like those little moments that like felt very real and grounded in their relationships that was already established in the movie, I thought was really well done. I do think that the individual members of the Justice Society could have benefited from some more screen time to themselves and with each other. I guess exploring their backgrounds or exploring who they are as people to really, explore them more. Because I feel like there was a lot of untapped potential with Cyclone, with Atom Smasher, and with Hawkman especially. Because, like, Carter Hall is a very rich character in the comics, not just monetarily, although his mansion is incredible, but also, like, you know, you have so much source material for Hawkman. He's one of the most ubiquitous members of the Justice League. The Thanagarians are iconic. You know, I think that, especially with the amount of material from the comics with Carter Hall that you can work with, I think that there's a lot more room to explore with him, and that's one of the reasons why I'm really glad Hawkman lived and Dr. Fate didn't. You know, especially because it had been teasing that Hawkman was going to die, and then they had the bait and switch, and it could have been really cheesy and obvious and bad, but I do think they executed it well. So I guess with that, what I mean to say is, while they weren't super developed in this movie as a standalone experience, as a broader part of the DCEU going forward, where The Rock has referred to this as sort of phase one of their new plan, I'm excited to see where they go with the characters and how they explore them moving forward, especially under this new leadership, who does seem to be invested in The Rock's vision, especially with him on board as an EP. Ultimately, I do think the film would have benefited from an additional 10 to 15 minutes. And my impulse here is to chalk this up to Walter Hamada being Walter Hamada and being like, let's get this movie out, let's get it done, let's make it so it's only 2 hours so it can play in as many theaters and as many screenings as possible so we can make as much money as possible, and it's just a good business move. I do think that it would have benefited from being 2 hours and 20 minutes long, 2 hours and 15 minutes long, you know, just something, just like a simple course correction to where in the screenplay stage you can nix the Whedon-y jokes and flesh out the characters more with the greater amount of time given. You know what I mean? And maybe restructure a couple of scenes, especially at the beginning, so we get more invested in Adriana and Amon and Kareem, you know, early on, so that when they get put in danger, like I said, we care. Right? But like the same goes for the Justice Society. You know, an additional 10 to 15 minutes could give an extra scene for Cyclone, give an extra scene for Atom Smasher, give an extra scene for Hawkman, maybe 2 extra scenes for Hawkman, you know what I mean? And get us really invested in Carter Hall as a proper adversary to Black Adam, where in the film, he always seems very outmatched. And I know that's by design, but it did seem a little lopsided at times. You know what I mean with Hawkman? So, also, and this is a note for the director specifically, but some of the line reads in this movie were just bad. I know that working with kids is hard, and I do think the young actor playing Amon is very talented, especially for his age. But there's one fucking scene in the third act where Amon is inspiring the people of Kandak to fight back against Sabak and his army of the dead. And for some reason, this is like the only time in the film where he's ever sedate, you know, and his delivery is very held back and restrained in a way that is honestly pretty incongruous with, you know, what he's actually doing. He's speaking to a large crowd of people in a very open room while skeleton men, you know, attack the city outside. You got to be shouting. He should maybe even have a megaphone, honestly. So, you know, a simple fix, it's just a line read, but it did take me out of it a bit because that was the only time I ever noticed that performance was particularly weak. The only other time that I noticed that, you know, a actor was giving a bad performance was, and I feel bad saying this, but it was Harcourt, at the Task Force X site. Harcourt was there. Harcourt from Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, who's a great character, a fantastic character, especially in Peacemaker, where she gets really fleshed out, and you really learn a lot about her. For some reason, her actress, who is super solid in the other projects, her delivery is just so wooden, and it's so, it's almost like high school theater-y, you know? And like, I guess it's just like maybe, you know, she and the director of this project didn't have a whole lot of experience with one another. She's only in the one scene very briefly, like 30 seconds. But God, those 3 lines that she says were not particularly pleasant. And I'm just gonna leave that at that. Whoa, the lighting's different and I'm wearing slightly different clothes. So between recording sessions, I actually loved the movie so much that I went and saw it again. And this time I took some notes on my phone. I know you're not necessarily supposed to do that in theaters, but like, yeah, fine. Just don't tell anyone. Also, while I was gone, the news broke that James Gunn and Peter Safran are taking over DC Films as like co-heads, which I'm fucking excited about. It's gonna be awesome. So I'm very excited about that, and I may touch on that. I may circle back to that at the end here. I took some notes in my second viewing, like I just said, so I'm going to spend the rest of this video just sort of going over those and where they fit into this Liz Lerman critical response process. So I guess we'll stay on the track of opinion time, which is that, you know, on the topic of the screenplay needing work, I think the real problem isn't just that, you know, it was too condensed or that we didn't spend enough time with Adriana and with Kareem and with Aman, but specifically that the film lacked valleys within the story. You know, it was all peaks all the time, which, you know, is a great thing for what the movie is. But for the characters sort of suffered, especially the side characters, and that the film lacked valleys, and that's where a lot of the emotional exploration and heart comes in. And so I think that that was something that was kind of missing from the film for me. And I think the score reflected that. You know, I sung the praises of the score, and I will continue to do so. I think the Black Adam theme is like one of the best themes of any of the heroes in the DCEU or in any fucking superhero franchise of all. You know, I was listening to it on the train. Justice Society. Wow, the Justice Society theme is fantastic. There's so many great like just little tracks throughout the fucking giant ass score album that I downloaded on Apple Music. That being said, the score also lacked valleys, you know, so it wasn't as dynamic as it could have been. It definitely had like 2008 Incredible Hulk energy in that regard. And if you compare it to like the Batman, which came out, and listen, I know this is like comparing apples and oranges, like they're very different. But like the Batman, it had a lot of peaks and valleys, and that made the score and the screenplay itself very dynamic. Whereas here, it was just sort of like kind of going all at once, which means that in retrospect, a lot of the details get clouded because a lot of the things tend to get mushed together, you know, because there's not really like individual parts of the movie that you can point to be like, this happened, this happened. It all sort of feels like it all happened at once. So I think that was a problem with the screenplay. Honestly, most of my criticisms of this film go back to things that could have been fixed in the screenplay stage. So I think that's something that they're really going to need to look at with the second film and with the films going forward. Because DC has had some pretty good screenplays. You know what I mean? Like all the Zack Snyder movies had good screenplays. Wonder Woman had a good screenplay. Birds of Prey had a good screenplay.
Run, Piggy, run!
That being said, you know, I think the future looks really bright. There are a couple of little like things that I noticed that I didn't get on my first pass. Atom Smasher, something that I like about his characterization is that he's always eating, because it takes a lot of calories to maintain sort of like the growing in size powers that he has. It's a nice little like quirk of his character that distinguishes him from other size-based superheroes like Ant-Man, who is just like Pym particle. Now we're small, now we're big, no physiological effects on the body, it's fine. Whereas with Atom Smasher, he's just like, I always have to be eating. I'm like a black hole of snacks. Snack hole. Well, that should be long enough. I like that the jet was made of nth metal. You know, I thought that was like a really cool touch to solidify the fact that this is a Thanagarian device and he's like a Thanagarian guy. It's just like a cool little detail, something to look for as a fan of the comics. Hawkman's jet, I should say, excuse me. That being said, I think there was a missed opportunity, and I think Eunice pointed this out on Twitter recently, but I think there was a missed opportunity in that Hawkman and Black Adam didn't meet in one of, you know, Carter Hall's earlier, you know, cycles of reincarnation. and that wasn't ever mentioned. You know, reincarnation was never mentioned when that's like one of the core features of Hawkman as a superhero, and Hawkgirl as a superhero is that they're stuck in a constant cycle of reincarnation. So I thought that was something that was interesting that was omitted. That being said, I'm not sure where that would have really had a place in this movie because all of the stuff in Kahndaq was like very focused on Black Adam, his family, and sort of the slavery being enacted by the king in search of Eternium. It's Eternium. I remember I was like, is it Imperium? No, it's Eternium. Eternium itself is honestly kind of a deep cut in DC Comics. You know, it's not super ubiquitous. It's only been in a couple of stories. I didn't read the ones that it was in. And if it was name dropped, it like wasn't a big core player. So, you know. Egg on my face. I was like, Imperium. Oh, did they call it Imperium? That's a little on the nose. But no, it's like fully Eternium. That was just my bad. The movie, okay, as much as I dogged on the screenplay for being not where it should have been necessarily, I do think what was there was still really solid. This is a funny fucking movie. Okay, this is like there are so many great lines, like and like great little moments. Like just like it's a great thing to like watch in the theater, surrounded by people and like everyone's laughing and having a good time because most of the jokes work. You know, there's like the ones that are Whedon-y, like I mentioned earlier, are tend to be outliers. You know, you have that joke where like they're in the van and Black Adam flies off and Kareem goes like, well, I hope we never see him again. And then he crashes to the ground. And then you're half expecting him to be like, well, that just happened. Then maybe he dabs or something. And Adriana glares at him because she's a hyper competent woman surrounded by man children. But like I said, those are outliers, so you know, it's not a super big deal. It certainly doesn't like ruin the movie in any way. And I've seen some people say that it does, and it doesn't. Like the movie's funny, it's cool. I will say something that stuck out to me on my second watch is that like I was able to pay more attention to the dialogue, which is where I learned that Adriana has been like a freedom fighter in Kahndaq for a very long time now. She like quit her job as a professor at a university and has been sort of like moving from place to place with Amon and with Kareem and with her, you know, her comrades, fighting against the Intergang. And that's something that we should have seen. That shouldn't have been told to us. We should have seen it. We should have just seen it in action. And that's the real thing about like, you know, especially with Adriana, like a lot of her motives and a lot of her backstory is just told. It's not shown. And I think we could have really done with some, you know, showing and not telling. This sort of the core foundational rule of screenwriting is that it's a movie. You can do anything. Show us, don't tell us. And if you are going to tell us, have a reason for telling us instead of showing us. Like maybe they're an unreliable narrative and you're going to show us later. And like that actually happens in this movie. So why didn't something similar happen with Adriana? I don't know. Pretty weird. And it's not like Adriana is just like some side character that's like kind of a nobody in the comics, or, you know, someone who was like made up for the film. No, this is fucking Isis. Isis is an incredibly powerful superhero in the comics. She's super important, especially to the Black Adam mythos, but to the greater DC mythos as a whole. Like, Isis is a name in DC. Osiris is also a name, but like, at least Amon got like fleshed out more because Amon got more screen time because his and Black Adam's relationship is really important, especially to Black Adam's role as a father. Teth Adam, I don't know. And so why wasn't Adriana given the same treatment? Like, don't get me wrong, she's a great character. I thought she was characterized well. I thought her actors did a great job, but they could have done more. Yeah, I don't know. Like, and that's the thing. Like, the women in relation to Black Adam in this movie are in kind of a weird spot because we also like never meet like Harut's mother, the wife of Teth Adam back in like Kahndaq in like 2600 BC. We never like meet her. We see her like twice. She has no lines. She's unnamed, and like like she's never even like she's barely mentioned. She's only mentioned in relation to like the family unit. He never like even mourns her individually because the loss of his son was so important to him, and was so much more of a thing. And it's just like, come on, guys, you couldn't at least even give her a name. Couldn't have even said, oh, I'm Teth Adam, and this is my son Harut, and this is my wife, like Lauren or something. Like, like, come on, man, at least give her a name. So like we have something to cling on to with her, to feel sad about when she's executed. And like Hoodoo comes back and he's like, I couldn't save Mama. At least I can save you. And he's like, I couldn't save Mom either. But now I can save you. And then he gets assassinated. Black Adam's like, ah, no! And then he fucking destroys the Capitol, you know? Not the Capitol. I understand that this is an anti-imperialist film. That is not what I meant. But again, that's another thing that could have been fixed in the screenplay stage. You know, most of these notes, again, go back to the screenplay. The screenplay was what sort of let this film down. And that's okay, because what is in the screenplay does work, and the movie's not really about that. You know, it's like King of the Monsters. You know, you come for the spectacle, you come for the characters. And even in ways that the screenplay lets the characters down, you still get like a good time out of it, and you still get to know them, and you still get to hang out with them, like watch them beat people up. You know, like as much as I gave like Adriana some shit for being like, you know, show don't tell, like she kicks ass in this movie. Like Adriana is awesome, you know, and I'm very excited for where they're going to take her. I think her actress is fantastic, and while she wasn't super fleshed out in this movie, there's so much there that was already, you know, they did laid the groundwork with. Her personality really came through, her pathos really came through, and so I do think she worked in spite of, you know, the shortcomings on the part of the writing team. Sabak did not. Sabak did not work. But that's just because Ishmael kind of sucked. You know what I mean? Like, Ishmael was so underdeveloped as a villain. His, like, whole entire thing was like, I'm the last surviving descendant of my ancestor who lived 4,500 years ago. And that's why I'm a bad guy. And that's why I want the crown. And then he comes in and he's there for like a solid 20 minutes in the third act. And he looks okay. It's giving PS3, I won't lie. He has the pentagram on his chest and he has like the ram horns and all that. But like, honestly, like nothing with Sabak was done in this film that wasn't done better in the Call Me By Your Name video. And that's the thing, like Sabak's design is like the one weak link in the visuals for this movie, because like I said, the visuals are stunning. Okay, the visuals are insane. There were so many times when I was watching, both times, where I was like, oh my god, that is a splash page. That is like right out of the comics. This looks like a panel. This looks like a page. This is like, and like the visual storytelling that they were doing, the director of photography was a absolute genius with this one. And even when the editing was a little choppy, and even when it felt like there wasn't as much of a build as there could have been, it still fucking worked. You know what I mean? That is talent. That is skill. Okay? I've lost like the whole fucking like structure of this video at this point. That's what happens when you have two recording sessions responding to a superhero like dumb jock movie using a theory developed by a choreographer. You could really feel as well NetherRealm Studios' influence on the choreography of this film and the visual style of particularly the action set pieces. You know, there was a lot of Injustice references in this movie. You know, like, I think the one that everyone's been pointing to is Dr. Fate. He has that Ankh attack that he does in the game, where he whips out this giant, like, fucking, like, you know, Ankh in his, beautiful gold sorcery, and he smashes it onto his target and it locks them in place, and it looks painful and it causes pain, and you really get a sense of power scaling with Dr. Fate, that he can go head to head with Black Adam, he can go head to head with Sabak and not die immediately, and like it cause some serious damage on them, right? You know, and that, like, works to sell Dr. Fate as a powerful sorcerer, but it's also just so fucking cool, and it's a great reference because, I mean, the DCEU already draws a lot of inspiration from the Injustice games, and deservedly so, in my opinion. And it's honestly pretty symbiotic because for as much as the DCEU draws on the Injustice games with the Nightmare and everything, and with the action set pieces and the characterization of certain people, Injustice also draws on the DCEU in a lot of ways. I fucking loved how Black Adam killed Sabak too. He literally, oh my god, if you haven't seen it, he literally tears him in half like he's fucking like Noob Saibot or something like that. It's like a proper Mortal Kombat fatality, and it was so perfect, and it really cemented him in this universe as his character, as someone who not only kills, but kills brutally when it is deserved. And then to cap it all off, with him recreating the iconic 52 cover art and then saying this is wrong and rejecting that tyranny by smashing the throne. Oh my god, it's so good. God, fuck, I fucking love this movie. God, Jesus Christ. There's this idea in the film that Kahndaq has had enough heroes. You know what I mean? Like they say in the very first scene that Kahndaq has had plenty of heroes, they're all in the graveyard. What it needs is a protector. I believe they even say those words. That Kahndaq has had enough heroes. What it needs now is a protector. Someone who is willing to do the dirty work that heroes like the Justice Society won't do and sully their hands by doing the hard stuff. And it does not pull its punches on the fact that Black Adam is a proper anti-hero. You know, people throw around the word anti-hero now, especially in a lot of superhero discourse, and they use it to apply to characters like Batman or characters like Wolverine. You know, characters who have a strong moral compass but use, you know, some particularly brutal methods when, you know, dealing out their version of justice. And that's... I've never really seen an anti-hero like that. You know what I mean? I think Batman and Wolverine, they're just like proper heroes. You know, a more classic example of like an anti-hero would be someone like the Punisher, who is not only very morally complicated, but that moral complexity plays into the themes of his stories and who he is as a person, his backstory and his motivations. You know, the Punisher is not just brutal for brutality's sake. He's locked in this vicious cycle of violence because, you know, getting revenge for the murder of his family wasn't enough for him, you know, and he's trying to wage like this one-man war on organized crime, and it's just like this never-ending cycle because new bad guys keep replacing the old bad guys, and there's no systemic change. And that's the theme of the story. That idea of crime and punishment as something that has to be retributive, something that has to be violent. It's part of the theme. Likewise, Black Adam is a one-man army fighting against like imperialism, cultural imperialism, terrorism, fascism. But what makes him a proper anti-hero is not just the brutality of his actions, but also the motivations behind them. He's not just protecting Kahndaq. He's also getting revenge for his son's death. And every time he kills someone in the name of Kahndaq, it is towards the goal of liberation, and it's also towards the goal of avenging the murder of his son at the hands of those who enslaved them. That's what makes Black Adam an anti-hero. It's not that he does crime or that he does murder in the name of justice. It's that the reason he does it is so personal, and one could argue even selfish. Adriana herself says, I don't care about this cause. I don't care about you people or your people. I just want my son. You know, I'm fighting to get my son back, and until that happens, you guys need to work together. I don't care about the crown of Sabak or whatever. It all comes down to my son. And those actions and those motivations that could be seen and written off as selfish are extremely, extremely interesting from like a character perspective. You know what I mean? That's what makes a great character. That's what makes Adriana so fascinating. That's what makes Black Adam so fascinating, is that ultimately they're driven by one thing and one thing only, and that is the love and the desire to protect and avenge the people that they care for. Black Adam would not be Black Adam if he wasn't a grieving father. Isis would not be Isis if she wasn't working to protect Osiris at every turn. So with that being said, That's my thoughts on Black Adam. I thought it was fucking awesome. You know what I mean? I thought it was incredible, even if there were some parts of it that I think could have, been workshopped a bit and could have been improved. I thought there was room for improvement, but I also think there's room for improvement in everything, and what this movie sets out to do and what it sets out to accomplish, it accomplishes in spectacular fashion. And I was so happy watching it both times. I gotta say, it was an absolute phenomenal experience from start to finish, and I am so grateful to The Rock for making this happen. So grateful to the producers, and I'm so looking forward to the future of DC now that that old leadership at Warner Media is gone, and now that they have a solid path forward that has an emphasis on listening to the fans and what the fans want. And I know they're just saying this, so there's always the possibility that it could just be lip service. But I don't think it is. I think the fact that The Rock got Henry Cavill, Superman, back in this movie and got him to officially announce his return to DC, it's, oh my god. It just means the world to me. And it tells me that they mean it when they say they're going to be listening to the fans and delivering on what the fans, the consumers, the audience wants. There was no bigger cheer in either showing for this movie than when Henry Cavill Superman came out on screen. That level of hype cannot be bought, cannot be curated. That is authentic, raw, human reaction to seeing this thing that we love and has been withheld from us for so long. I mean, I don't want to get like too dramatic with it, but like, this version of Superman means a lot to me. And his journey in Man of Steel and in Batman v Superman and in the Snyder Cut, it just resonates on a level that I don't even know I could quantify if I tried. And to have him back officially, and to see him step out and not be a faceless torso anymore, with actual dialogue and with a confirmation of the future after years of not knowing, years of uncertainty, years of fighting and campaigning and pleading for them to listen to us and to engage with us on what resonates with us about these stories. It's just so validating, and it makes me feel like my time has been well spent. As someone who's been a fan and a consumer of these characters and this media for a very long time, I'm starting to feel valued again. And that's just the most insane thing in the world to me. So, the movie has problems. All movies have problems. The problems in this one, I don't think detract from the overall quality of the film as much as like maybe they're being made out to. I think the film is awesome, and I'd encourage you all to go see it. I especially want you all to support this movie, so that more like it get made, not just under the DC label, but across the board from all studios, especially in the current state of Hollywood, where more and more resources are being poured into fewer and fewer projects, and less people are being given opportunities to make work at all, let alone on this massive scale. I foresee the rest of 2022 as being restful, relaxing, and rejuvenating in the push towards 2023 and beyond. You know what I mean? I see a wonderful spooky season, a wonderful holiday season. So with that, thank you so much for watching. And I hope that I'm not wrong about that. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe for the engagement. And if you agree with my opinions and my takes, let me know. If you disagree, also let me know. If you disagree with other people in the comments, let me know, and get in fights in the comments, and do whatever you can to up the algorithmic boost. I really appreciate it. I do read every comment, and I really appreciate all the love and support y'all have shown me it's honestly been overwhelming, and I've been having to like sort of like mentally compartmentalize it, because I just like with school and like how busy I've been, I haven't had a moment to really process it yet. But all of the love on the Teen Wolf video that I worked for a very long time on, it's also been just like extremely validating. And I'm not gonna get too into it, but it means a lot to me. It's really special to me. Thank you for all the love and all the support. And yeah, here's to finishing 2022 strong. So with that, Shazam! Bye.